Hello and welcome to Nosotros, the podcast about Mexican-American politics, history, cultura, y más, brought to you in part by the Gámez Law Firm. I'm your host, Elaine Ayala, Metro columnist for the San Antonio Express News. My guest today is Adriana Quiñones, CEO of Arboretum San Antonio, a 20-acre project on the city's south side that could open as soon as late 2027, but be developed over phases over the next 20 years. Welcome to Nosotros,
Thank
Adriana.
you. So
And to San Antonio, too.
Yes, exactly.
Before we get started, I always play a little game of this or that with my guests. So here we go.
I'm ready.
Wild garden or landscape design?
Wild garden.
Right?
Hands down.
When it's too, it just doesn't, it looks like you're spending a lot of money and you're so hoity-toity.
Yeah. I think there's a place for those very cultivated and proper gardens where they look right. But as a general rule, I'd rather have wild.
Me too. Annuals or perennials?
Ooh. I like all plants, but I'm going to have to go with perennials.
Me too. Because this is what happens to me. I have this lily-like plant, and it's so sturdy. Mm-hmm. It comes back no matter what.
Yeah, exactly.
It's so beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay, here's one that's an or.
Oh, okay.
Seeds or seedlings or cuttings?
Oh, this is I used to be a propagator,
yes.
So this is
I try to be, but I'm not very good at it.
Oh gosh, seeds, seedlings, or cuttings. Okay, I think I would go with cuttings. And the reason is because you get a plant quicker that way. So if it's going to bloom, it will bloom quicker than if it was from seeds or seedlings. So.
But what I like about it is that you might get a cutting from a friend.
Yes.
From an old plant.
Exactly.
And so it has like story.
History.
It has heritage.
Yeah.
Okay, I think I know how you'll answer this one. Fruit trees or flowering trees?
Oh, flowering trees.
You fell in love with them, which
yes.
we'll get to. Okay. Raking leaves or leaving them on the ground?
Leave them on the ground.
Okay.
100%.
Tell them why.
Well, there's lots of good reasons to leave the leaves. One, the nutrients will go back into the soil. Now, I don't have any problem with a little bit of mowing over, but you also have to be careful with that because a lot of our beautiful butterflies and moths live in the fallen leaves. And if you're constantly breaking and mowing them, you're actually
I had no idea. That's
you could be
news.
you could be mowing up some baby butterflies and moths and things like that. So
in the wintertime when it's not growing, just leave
it, and then once the grass starts growing again and that sort of thing, you can maybe rake it to a side. Wait a little bit till those butterflies and moths would have emerged, and then you can dispose of them later.
Oh, good idea. All righty. This is a watering question. Mm-hmm. Hose or slow drip? I love my hose.
There's a place for both, for sure. Slow drip is nice, no evaporation. It gets right at the roots of the plants. But that's not always practical, so sometimes you have to use a hose. So I'm not answering that one.
Okay, all right.
I'm going to say they're both. They're equal.
This is when I ask all my guests, regardless of what their specialty is. Corn or flour?
Oh. I'm a flour girl. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You're going to fit in San Antonio perfectly because flour is master of all.
Okay.
Even though I get some real uppity people in here sometimes and they all say corn. And I know.
I understand that. But I always like to say also, I'm not Mexican. So
we're going to get into that right away. Thank you so much.
People might wonder what I am, but
yeah, here we go.
Here we go.
I'm going to start with a heritage question because this podcast is all about culture and heritage. And I want you to tell us your family's story.
Okay. So I am from a Puerto Rican family. My dad came to the States. We like to say the mainland in Puerto Rico, but came to the mainland to go to school in Ohio, of all places. And that's where I was born and raised. It was in Ohio. But my family on my dad's side is Puerto Rican, still have a lot of family there, a lot of family all over the States.
Island too?
On the island too.
Oh, how wonderful.
Yeah, yeah. In fact, my cousin owns a sustainable farm down there that it's a great story. She has this farm to show Puerto Ricans that we can grow our own food because, we still import, for example, bananas from Chile.
And so expensive.
Yeah, and we can grow them on the island. So she's a retired professor emeritus from the University of San Juan in chemistry, and that's what she's doing in her retirement. But anyway, family there.
But
and then
you have other heritage.
And then my other heritage on my mother's side, she is an Irish Hungarian, and so I am 1/4 Irish. My grandfather on that side was full-blooded Irish, and my grandmother was full-blooded Hungarian. So I am Irish, Hungarian, and Puerto Rican. More Puerto Rican than anything.
Of course, because your father meant so much.
Yes,
so
exactly. That culture has always been such a big part of my life. And, it was closer to, growing up and that sort of thing. Whereas the Irish and Hungarian was a few generations back. So, but yeah.
It's fascinating to me that you were first a young mother, then I guess a hairdresser for a
Yes. You got a good memory.
Then you found a passion.
Yeah.
And then you went to college.
That's right.
So I think for young people that are, or not so young people that are late bloomers, there's hope in this, right?
Oh, there is.
So tell us a little about that journey.
Yeah, I love that story because, we put a lot of pressure on our young people to pick a job. I mean, at 12 years old, we're asking our kids, what do you want to be when you grow up? Right?
Yes.
And that is so much pressure to a young person as they are going through life because, they don't even know what they could do yet, let alone. So what do they pick? They pick doctors or lawyers or firefighters or nurses or teachers. Like these are the jobs that people think of. But we all know there's so many other things that people can do and so, lots of talent that they have that they haven't even explored yet. So I went to beauty school. I like doing hair, and it was fine.
And you do have fabulous hair, by the way.
Oh, thank you. So, I don't do much to it anymore, but back then I did. But then I, as a young mom, looking for something to occupy my time as my kids were in school full time, I just started volunteering at an arboretum. And that first year of volunteering kind of just solidified to me that, I really enjoy this. And maybe this is something I would actually like to do. And so I started pursuing that, going to college. So I was 26 when I started volunteering. I was 27 when I went to college. And I thought I was really old at 27. Not so much anymore.
That's so crazy, right?
Right.
So young.
You feel so much older because you're, almost 10 years older than the average 18-year-old starting college. And I had kids and all that stuff. So it was just a very different, I look back at that and think, I wish I was 27 again, right?
So young.
Yeah.
And you'll find in San Antonio, there's so many non-traditional, what we call non-traditional
students
that are finding their way. And it's hard to figure out what to do for the rest of your life. And
it is, and it's funny because so many people change careers, right? And we have this almost a stigma against it. Like, you
must have failed.
Yeah, you must have failed. When actually, had they just, waited to really decide what they wanted to do, they might have found that passion earlier had they not been trying to force into this one thing. I always say, like my brother-in-law, he's a lawyer. He's like, I would like to quit my job and do what you do. I've known quite a few lawyers who have done that, who have gone into horticulture. So it just...
Isn't that amazing? Because it puts you outside in nature. And
it does.
That's why I garden, because I just like turning my brain off for a while.
Right,
and
exactly.
Getting
dirt under your nails and touching the ground. It's ground because it grounds you, right?
And I talk to my plants.
Yeah, as you should.
Before we talk about the Arboretum, I just want you to tell our viewers about your mercy ship. Just a little bit, because it's not about your career, but but we hear of mercy ships on the television because we hear commercials. But you went on a very early.
Yeah, it is part of my story, and it did shape who I am. So it's a very important part of my story, really. When I was 21 years old, I decided to up and leave the country and do a missionary trip overseas. And of course, I couldn't just pick a normal one. So, without knowing anyone, without ever having left the country before, I got on a plane and landed in Zihuatanejo, Mexico. Which is beautiful. Yep. And joined the Mercy Ships, which is, it's its own organization now. But at the time, it was part of a group called Youth with a Mission. And it's a Christian missionary ship that has a full hospital on board. We did surgeries. We had an eye clinic. We had a dental unit. And we could do quite a few surgeries. I am not a surgeon. I did not do that.
But my favorite part of that story is going through the Panama Canal. Just a little bit.
Oh, yeah. So
because it was a really historical time.
It was so dramatic. Yeah. So while I was on the ship, so the ship was docked in Mexico on the coast, and then we eventually were set sail to travel, and our path was to sail down the coast and go up through the Panama Canal and get to the Atlantic, and then back up to the States. And during that trip, we hit the Panama Canal, and we were sitting there, and they closed the canal down. And the reason they closed it down was because Noriega was taking over the country, and it was wartime. We didn't realize we would get stuck in there, so they wouldn't let us through, and the only other way around there would have been to go down South America and around the Horn,
which is such a long trip.
We did not have supplies.
And also
we didn't have
cold.
Yeah, we were not prepared to do that. So we waited there for about 12 hours. And eventually, the middle of the night, they opened the canal up and said, you can go through. So it's pitch black. And we started our journey through the canal, and we could hear people yelling. We could hear the guns going off. It was probably the most dramatic thing I've ever experienced, to be quite honest. And we made it to the little lake in the middle, which is large, and they shut it down again. So now we're trapped in
a pond
in the lake in the middle of Panama, in the Panama Canal, wondering when we will be able to get out. Unfortunately,
I would be thinking of pirates coming on.
Oh, right. It could have been, who knows? I mean, you could still hear the shooting. You could still hear the yelling. I mean, that lake's very wide, so it wasn't quite the same as I honestly felt like while we were going through the canal, you could probably reach out and touch somebody who had a gun. Like, it was that close. It felt close to you. The lake's much bigger, but you could still hear it. The funny part was this poor other ship was trapped with us. It was a Princess Cruise Line.
Oh my God.
And I thought, wow, they're really getting their money worth on this cruise. Whereas we also, being a shipload of Christian missionaries, we felt it was a very divine thing that we were in the middle of that lake during that time period, because we sat and prayed on the ship.
Was there singing?
Oh, we sang. We did all kinds of, and
I've been on mission trips. Yeah, I do a lot of
singing. And this is an international group. Americans were actually the minority on that ship. It was mostly people from other countries, and we had some Samoans on there, and the Samoans are the happiest people I've ever met in my life. And they were dancing and doing their Samoan dances, which is a very expressive dance if you've ever seen them. And we had a great time. I mean, for some reason, of course, I was 21. So, you're not thinking of the danger. I was like, this is an adventure.
And you began to love Mexican food.
I did.
Which is another story.
Yes. I'm full of stories, right? Because while I was in Mexico, a beautiful family up in the mountains invited a few of us to come and join them for an overnight. And while we were there, I'll never forget it. They had a little calf that this sounds horrible, but they killed the calf for us to feed us.
Actually, that that's such a place of honor.
It was.
Because they're offering
I did not feel that they should have done that. I really didn't to this day. But they were so excited for us to be there.
That you were there.
And they made the tortillas on a stone with fire. I mean, like the things that there was no electricity, no running water up there. It gets really cold in the mountains at night. I did learn that. But the best tacos I've ever had. I told you, I think when I said that story, I can still taste it to this day. I'm a vegetarian now, but I can still taste how good that was. Yeah. It was amazing. Yeah. It was quite a trip.
Of course you're vegetarian. Okay, let's
Of course I am, right, exactly.
So let's get into the Arboretum. Describe, it's a huge project, right?
Yes.
So I first want to ask you about the mission, especially given the whole demonization of DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion.
Yeah, okay, so the Arboretum is being built under the lens of equity. And we're going to say that because that is exactly what we're doing. And
it's brave.
It is brave
these days.
But we are a private nonprofit, and therefore our mission stands alone. It's not a government agency. So, our mission is to be accessible and to everyone, and to be a place where the equality is celebrated, that everyone has a right to be in green spaces and enjoy green spaces, that we include everyone. So,
but why is that considered different in terms of the history of green spaces?
Yes, well, so in the past, and it's, it is what it is. It's just a fact. Most green spaces were built by wealthy families. They were
the Vanderbilts,
yes, the DuPonts,
yes,
which is one of our largest.
That also created libraries.
Yes,
and other beautiful things.
They did wonderful things with their money. They certainly did, and so it's not to say that anything about them, that part of it, is bad, but because of the history, they were generally closed to people that weren't in that society, in that rank of people, which generally were wealthy, white type people. And
almost aristocratic.
Yeah, it really was. And at that time, that was our aristocrat class, to be honest. They could afford to buy acres of pristine land and turn it into these beautiful gardens. And they weren't open to the public. They were not. They were their own gardens for their own people. And then over time, these gardens became public gardens. But that history and that way that they were formed lived on, So, many people who frequented them were not people of color. They didn't feel comfortable in those places.
Yeah, I think that there's an unwritten rule, an unwritten sense that that's not a place for people of color.
Right.
So people of color stay out.
And the thing is, and you can attest to this as well, especially our Hispanic culture, we celebrate flowers. I mean, look at our gardens. Look at the places we build around our homes.
Look at our clothes.
Look at our clothes. Exactly.
Everything.
So it's not a matter of that we don't like flowers. It's not or trees or beautiful spaces. It's just that wasn't our place. So we did it in our homes. We did it in our home gardens. We did it in places like that. And, I know my family has beautiful gardens around their homes. So there was always this kind of like, I do mine and you do yours, And so finding that way to bring more people in to appreciate these kind of places. And this Arboretum is being built specifically, for the leadership is diverse. Our board is diverse.
It's Henry Cisneros'
Henry Cisneros, right?
Brainchild.
It is. And, we shouldn't feel bad about saying that, a Hispanic woman is leading it. This is rare. This is not what normally happens. And so
in botanical gardens. In museum spaces.
It still is it's getting better. I want to be honest. It is getting better. But it even when I started, it was a very male-dominated profession. To see a woman in science and then put the Hispanic or Latina on top of that, just didn't see that very often. I mean, there's just very few of us.
Okay, well, we have to get to all these other things.
I know, sorry. I got excited about talking about that.
Yeah, but it's an important part of your mission. Describe what it looks like now. It's a former golf course, and what it will look like eventually.
So it's funny because when you hear it's a former golf course, you kind of think, oh, it's going to look like a golf course when I'm out there. There is still shadows of the golf course, but it's been closed since 2020. And it's amazing to me how quickly nature takes back over, right?
You just have to leave it alone.
Just leave it alone.
It's kind of scary when you do see those apocalyptic
you do, exactly.
That's exactly what's going to happen.
That's exactly what happens. And so the trees are coming up through the fairways. The wildflowers are in those fairways. You can see them blooming. You can see even the golf cart paths, which will need to be repaired, but, their trees are coming up through them,
Wow.
So, but it's a little wild right now. I mean, for sure. And, because it's been left alone for so many years, there's some invasive species that will need to be removed and things like that. But, the Salado Creek runs through it, and there's beautiful old, we call them hero trees. They're anywhere from 200 to 300 years old. They're branches 50 feet wide of a canopy and 50 feet high. And you walk under those old heritage trees and you just can imagine the people who walked through there when these trees were growing. I mean, 200 years ago, that's a long time. Things were happening. Our indigenous people probably met there. And because since the Salado Creek ran through and they built a golf course there, they didn't disturb where the creek was, and that allowed those trees to continue growing.
That's
right
wonderful,
there. So
because they have an access to water.
Right.
Hero trees. That was another sort of fascinating thing that we spoke about when I wrote a column on you and the Arboretum. And there's talk about a little bit about how the Arboretum becomes a museum and how these hero trees play into that. So one thing that a lot of people don't realize is that botanic gardens and arboretum are considered under the federal government museums. And that is because we keep records of our trees, we catalog them, we call those accession records, we track their life, we track when we planted them, we track when they die. We keep this, That's okay.
Talking with my hands. We keep this record of all our plants, just like they do in a museum. So when you go to a museum and you see a beautiful painting or a beautiful sculpture, know that there's a record that says, oh, this beautiful painting is in our collection. We're going to keep track of it. We do the same thing at the Arboretum. We track all those trees. And so
you track where exactly they are.
So there's a bunch of things we track. I mean, the list is very large, but the basic things are, what kind of tree is it? Where is it planted? How did we receive it? That's really important for us to know if it's a naturally occurring plant, or is it cultivated in a garden, or did somebody go out and collect it in the wild and then bring it back to the Arboretum? All those designations play an important part in those records keeping. We want to know things like, did somebody donate a tree, and who was that and why did they donate it? Because we want to keep that. That's just like we keep our stories, our trees have stories. And that's why we call them hero trees, because of the story.
Okay, there's a couple of things coming up soon. on the Arboretum development. And one of those is a big reveal of what I think is the master plan.
That's right.
So tell us a little bit about that process and what you'll be revealing, or as much as you can say, because I know there's a big reveal, but
got to keep some of it secret.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so the process has been a year-long process. Back, actually quite longer when you think of the day that Henry actually wrote that op-ed piece, and which was 2021, and said San Antonio deserves an arboretum. All great cities have arboretums. We should have an arboretum. But the master plan process started about a year ago when a firm out of Boston and Denver, it's a national firm that's called Sasaki, was hired to plan for this. And they were so excited to take this project, just like me, because it's a once-in-a-lifetime project. You just don't get to do this kind of thing very often. And so they set out to make the best arboretum for San Antonio that we possibly could. And they did it by engaging the community, which I love that part of it, because we know that our plan had all of our community's input in it. It's not like we just said, oh, you're smart enough, just figure out a plan and give it to the city. We wanted to know what our Bexar County and the city of San Antonio really wanted in this green space. And so we reached out to well over 18,000 people in this process, this community engagement process, to talk to them and see. We ended up with 3 concept plans, and then we asked people to weigh in again on those 3 concepts, and we took all the best ideas from those 3 concept plans and have put them into our final master plan, which we will reveal on May 10th at 10:30 a.m. at the Arboretum.
Okay, all right. That's going to be newsy.
Yes.
And we'll want to see graphic art on that.
Yes.
So that's wonderful.
It's going to be exciting.
But I do want you to just say briefly, because we're running out of time here, but I'm imagining trails. I'm imagining what is
going to be in there. Yep. So, one of the things people really loved, and I do too, and I'm excited this is in the plan, is a beautiful tree walk. So an elevated walkway through the canopy of the trees. Yeah. See, everyone loves that idea.
Yeah.
And so that'll be there. There'll be an education center. There'll be a research center. We're going to work with our universities and other researchers to do research on trees. Trees, how do they survive in a changing climate, and what are the best trees to plant, and that sort of thing. There'll be an education center with classrooms. We can bring the kids in. We can bring adults in. We can teach classes. You name it, we can teach all kinds of classes. We're really excited about having these tree collections that, span different kinds of things, such as plants that were used by the indigenous people, or oaks that grow in this area, or flowering trees that are recommended for San Antonio. So it could be a wide, breadth of what kind of collections of trees. We'll also have a gift shop, of course, with a nursery. So you can come in, and if we say this is a great tree to grow in your yard, we will have those trees for sale for you.
Awesome.
So that we can get those trees directly into the hands.
Because we need more shade.
Yes, we do.
Climate change. And climate change has to be quite the story for people like you.
It is. I mean, it takes a lot to deny that the climate is changing. I'll just say it that way. And it's clear that is warming up. And, trees that historically have been able to survive this climate, if it gets too warm, they're not going to be able to, and they're going to die off.
Pecans are dying off.
Yeah, and the pecans are one of those good examples of that kind of thing happening. So we want to do some research to say, okay, well, if it warms up, what trees would survive? The ones that are currently here, which ones of those will survive? But also, is there other places we can go and say, for example, Mexico? Can we go down to Mexico and say, oh, these trees are doing really well. It's a little bit warmer there, but they're doing great. Could we try to bring those up and grow some of those and see how they do? Or trees that are like the same latitude of us across the world.
Yeah.
So maybe they are in Asia or Africa or something like that, and say those trees are doing really well in that kind of climate that is similar to our changing climate. Could we take some of those in?
Quick question before we leave.
Yes.
So is it a lost cause on pecans in San Antonio? Okay.
No. Most of the pecans that are failing to thrive are some of our naturally occurring pecans. There's a lot of breeding being done to breed in some traits that will help them survive this changing climate.
Is grafting a possibility on an old tree, or should you just start all over?
Well, an old tree that's dying, you could take some of the branches and graft them onto new young stock. But hopefully the stock that you're grafting them onto has some resistance to the heat and that sort of thing, and see if they'll do okay. But really, it's going to come down to breeding that resistance to that heat and changing climate back into those trees, that they can survive a little less water, a little hotter temperatures. And it's possible. That is a possibility to do.
Okay, there's a little hope.
There is hope.
Thank you so
I'm
much.
not giving up on that.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for being here, too.
Absolutely.
And we'll look forward to another time.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
You can watch the video version of Nosotros on YouTube and listen to it anywhere you get your podcasts. My Metro column appears Wednesdays and Fridays in the San Antonio Express News. And if you want to reach me, my email address is eayala@express-news.net. Thanks for joining us, and see you next time on Nosotros.